Hello and welcome to the first workshop for the year 2023. Honored to be hosting the first workshop and even more honored to be with Stefano from Italy. So just want to make sure that you hear two voices and no more than two because sometimes you get a bad echo. Please put a thumbs up if you hear two voices. Stefano, do you want to say something?
Yes, sure. Hello, Rags. Nice to see you here. Hi, everyone who is with us. I think our voices are good. Nice to see all of
Yeah,
you.
and good
And
morning, good
today
afternoon,
is
good
going to
evening,
be,
wherever you are, and welcome again.
yeah, yes. So today is going to be the first workshop of 2023. We are honored to start this long-standing tradition of weekly online workshops by DataStax developers. I see there are a few friends on the chat. So hi, everyone. I see Cedric in the chat. Hi. Yes, we can start, I think, because we have had our own feedback on the voices and we can start. Yes, you can hear us both. Okay, so yes, so a bit of presentation. I am Stefano. I work at DataStax as developer advocate. I love Apache Cassandra and related technologies, distributed databases. I'm a developer and I used to be a physicist, but today I'm here to show you a lot of cool stuff in GraphQL and databases. And that's for me, Rugs.
All right, my name is Raghav and Srinivas, but people have a tough time pronouncing my name, so I just go by Rags. Rags, not to riches, easiest way to remember me. My undergrad was actually in mechanical engineering. I like these workshops, and I've said this quite a few times, and I honestly kind of believe in it. Is that I learn a lot from these workshops because I see code in motion. Code in motion is probably the closest you can relate to a mechanical engineer, right? And a software engineer. That's kind of the overlap there. But I also love to teach. I teach in the Boston area, which is where I live. Not as frequently as I used to because I travel quite a bit as well. But what I'm passionate about is kind of improving the developer productivity, especially the inner loop, because that will effectively produce a lot of productivity gains. So um, I come from the Java side of the world. I've done a lot of Kubernetes, so you may have seen me at some of the KubeCons, Kubernetes community days, and so on. But again, just thrilled to be here.
Okay, great. Thank you, Rugs. And let's not forget that behind these and every other workshop by us, there is a whole team which we want to acknowledge. Hi, everyone. So Cedric, David, Rax, Artyom, and so on. It's all the crew there, and we thank you them all for contributions to
Yeah,
workshops all
absolutely.
the time.
Behind every person, there is a
So
village, right? And we have an
yes,
army
indeed.
of people ready to jump in and help us out. There are some people on the chat. Thanks again for doing this,
Yeah,
and you'll hear different perspectives from different people.
yeah. So I see Alex in the chat. Hi, Alex. Nice to see you. Happy New Year. Okay, so I think we can start with a bit of housekeeping information before we start with the content very quickly. So how does this live work? Okay, so you're seeing us in YouTube, probably live as I speak, but since this workshop will be recorded, you might even be seeing us in the future because this is recorded and this is meant to be also a self-service kind of thing. So this is one point. Next, I've seen already the question popping up in the chat. You see there is a chat next to the YouTube live, and this is a perfect place to ask your questions, of course, because Rags and I and other people from DataStax are here to help you. But we also do have a Discord server, which is, I'll ask our good friend Nightbot to give you the link to the Discord server. You're welcome to join, and this is where Discord is where the discussion can go on beyond the limited time of this workshop. Then there is another important point. We also run a bit of interactive quizzes with a few questions to you. First, to just know you better. And by the end of today's workshop, also, there is a bit of quiz to have fun and to, let's say, consolidate what you've learned. So what are the tools we are going to use today? First, we will use GitHub. There is a repository on GitHub, and I'm going to drop you the link here. There is a repository with code for today, the slide deck available for you, and also instructions if you want to do all of the practice yourself. We are going to use an IDE in the cloud running in your browser, so there's nothing to install, and that's called Gitpod. If you don't know it yet, it's cool, and you will be mind blown probably by the end of today. We are going to rely on a real database in the cloud, which is DataStax AstraDB. More on that later, of course. This is a cloud database built on Apache Cassandra, and it also offers GraphQL capabilities, which we are going to use today. Again, this is all in the cloud. And last and very important point, today, your application will not just run as in development mode, but it will also run deployed as an actual real application running available in the Netlify deployment infrastructure in a fully serverless way. So that's all cool. And I remind you, there's nothing to install. So you just need your browser, maybe a GitHub account, and the will to come with us to the end. That's not all there is to say, because today we are going to use also something called Astra CLI, which is a very cool, recently released command line tool to manage your cloud database. You will see it in action very soon.
And it's interesting to note here that we are going to be actually taking advantage of all of the ones that are there, and that is why we are able to kind of compress a lot into 2 hours. We had the same workshop done before, but it used to stretch to 2.5 hours, sometimes 2 hours 45 minutes. But hopefully we can get that done in 2 hours today. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Of course, we get the question whether there is a certificate of attendance now and then, and the answer is yes, there is a badge of attendance actually, and this is not just, you don't just gain it by watching us today. We also ask you to do a little assignment, so there will be more information by the end, and it's all in the GitHub repository. But if you do the assignment and submit what you did, it's a simple coding exercise, basically. You will be awarded a verified badge that you can share on your social channels and raise the envy of your friends. Okay, but now I think we are almost done with the introduction, except we start with a bit of interactive session. So I think, Rax, it's your turn. I will ask Nightbot to give us the coordinates to join Menti. What we ask from you is to take your phone or maybe just a new browser tab, go to menti.com and enter the code that will be given in the chat and also on screen. I see it here, 89 18 70 67 5. So I'll copy it again in the chat.
It should come up. I did try it before. So. Oh, okay, I will do it for you. Wait. Yeah.
Just one thing, please avoid watching YouTube for the question later when it's a timed quiz, because there's a bit of delay, but now it's all good. You should just go to menti.com with a new browser or your phone. There's also a QR code.
All right.
We
have a few people joining. Give it a little bit of time for everybody to join. You can either, like what Stefano said, use the code 8918675. I don't believe you need to put the spaces in there, but it doesn't matter. Or use the QR code.
No, it shouldn't. No, it shouldn't be any difference, I guess. There is a question while we wait. There is a question by Joseph. Yes, this will be recorded and you can access it anytime in the future at the same link you are using now, as long as YouTube does not, shut down.
All right. We have a few. Again, the code is 89 18 67 5. We always ask this question about where you're from. So feel free to put a dot from where it doesn't need to be very accurate. but were you listening? Were you're sitting on a beach, Indonesia, USA? It's
Nice.
always exciting to see dots pop up, right? I know it's pretty late
I
in
see
India,
there are,
but still there are quite a few people from the US.
yeah,
And
yeah.
somebody
I
from Sri
see
Lanka.
someone next to your door.
Yeah,
Yes,
the
indeed.
dot below India, is it Sri Lanka? Can you please let us know in chat or something?
Yeah, I
Or
think so.
a few
Think
from
so.
Canada, our
Should be.
nice and friendly neighbor. All right.
Yeah. Fellow Europeans about.
Exactly.
Nice.
Um,
Hi, everyone.
welcome again. All right. So this is something that I put in here. Just wondering how many of you have had the pleasure or pain of attending the in-person conferences and meetups in the last 3 years. I can count on one hand. Attended 12 or more. Wow, that must be Cedric, right? Yeah, and yeah, that's kind of what I thought. We are trying to actually do a lot more, and I know we're going to have a link for a Cassandra Summit, which is coming up in the Bay Area in March.
Indeed.
Unfortunately, the CFP for that closed, about a few weeks back. But you really have a mind-blowing proposal. Maybe we can still fit it in, and I don't know. But it'd be great if you can attend the conference. And with that said, let's move to the next question, which is, how many in-person conferences or meetups do you plan to attend this year? More than 10 or 12? Okay, a few. That makes sense. Quite a few. Few. Okay. None. Okay, and I don't blame you. Things are still not completely resolved out in the world there, but hopefully soon. Okay, this gives us an idea for how we want to plan our conferences as well, because I personally am a little bit old-fashioned. I like to see people. I like this virtual ones. I like this workshops, but at the same time, I like kind of seeing people in person as well. Okay, moving on.
Yeah, indeed.
More important, your experience with GraphQL.
Oh, yeah. That's more to the
Yeah.
content of today. Complete
Right.
beginner.
And we kind of expect
I
this.
see.
So
Yeah.
it'll be a gentle introduction to GraphQL for sure. But be attentive, because some of the GraphQL questions are probably going to feature in the quiz later, right? So
Yes,
yeah,
a few. Just a few.
Yeah. All right, watch out for the expert. As long as it's not Cedric, I think we're okay, right? Or Alex or Aaron or one of those, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or Artem.
Yeah, there will be I see. There will be a few discussions, a few slides on GraphQL, and we are going to use it.
Absolutely.
So you will sure get some exposure to it.
And the other part that we're going to be using, obviously there is the application, there's the data, right? So we'll be definitely using React in today's workshop. So the nice thing about, at least what I'm seeing, the distribution here is that people are more familiar with React. In fact, a lot of times we get people who are not used React or really no familiarity with React at all. So maybe we can keep the intro a little bit, going forward fast, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we will have a look at how the React code interfaces with the GraphQL and the serverless functions, and that will be, the novel part for most of you. So, yeah.
Very cool.
Okay. So.
And with that, I think we're done with all the intros. So pass it back to you, Stefano. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And please keep the Menti
Yes,
connection
yeah.
open, because by the end of today, we will have a small quiz to reinforce what you learned.
Yeah. And we're
So-
going to get back to this particular quiz time, after we have gone through most of the slides.
Great. So I see we are back to my slides, and so to our slides. So let's start with what we want to build today. What's our goal? Well, I think we want something like this. So we want an application, a web application running on an actual public URL, as you see in this box above. So there is some kind of domain, and there an application is running, and this is sort of a Netflix landing page with, a big movie trailer with text and of course a mocked play button. We don't have actual movies, if you're wondering. But my point, so the important point for today is that we want an application which fetches data from an actual database, and it will be a database, a serverless database ready in the cloud. You will see then it in a while. And then we want this application to be able to offer several movie genres with pagination and infinite scroll to show them, to load them piecewise, page-wise. And within a given genre, we want to be able to paginate movies. So to avoid, clogging the net with requests, giant requests. So we want pagination, infinite scroll, and everything running deployed in an actual website, in an actual web application with actual database serving data. These are the main points for today. Okay, so let's start speaking of how this will work. The usual full stack application is always more or less what we see here. So there is, let's start from the far right of this sketch. There is a database running on some server, and that will host data in, for example, a list of movies with their properties. This database is queried by the backend. Let's say there is an API that is speaking the language of the database, whatever that is. Maybe it's SQL, maybe it's something different, but anyway, there is a backend speaking to the database, asking for a list of movies, matching some criteria, whatever. And this API, the backend side, is queried by the front end. The front end is speaking to the API to get a list of movies to show. The backend speaks to the database, and then the data goes back to the front end. Now, the backend is running on some server out there, let's say in a data center, in Amazon Web Services, whatever. And the front end is usually, in our case of the React code, for example, is something that is running in your browser. So you are the user, and you run the application in your browser, and this is where the front end lives. Now, this is, let's say, full stack application 101. We are going to add a twist, because in our case, this is how the application will look like. And that's, maybe some of you are wondering why there are two APIs. Now, the point is that the application, so what you write, what we write when we deploy the application, will comprise both the user interface, so the client, and the API. But the API is really just a very thin thing, which in turn speaks to the database, not directly to the database, but to an API layer that is offered within the database. So the box you see in the center is what one has to write when creating the application, while the box on the right is ready with the database, including its data access API. This might sound contrived maybe or unclear yet, but in a second this will be made much clearer. First, we add a few names of technologies. So the database is going to be a cloud version of a database built basically on Apache Cassandra, exposing the same interface, the same functioning as Apache Cassandra, but in a serverless way, managed in the cloud. But there is an important further layer on the database block. There is an API which makes it possible to access the data in the database in different ways, one of which happens to be GraphQL. And that's ready for you out there, out of the box. As you create your database, you already have the chance to speak GraphQL to it, despite what the actual data model behind is, and the storage.
I know that there are a few people who are not familiar with GraphQL, right? So, the other APIs that are available, for example, REST, gRPC, and all that. I know, Stefano, you might be about to get to that,
yeah,
but
we are getting there quickly. Yeah. But that's a good point. So there are various ways of speaking to this database, one of which is GraphQL. And you will see more on GraphQL, and you will actually do more on GraphQL yourself. So don't worry. Hold your curiosity just 10 minutes or so. Okay, so let's look at the central block. This is the application proper, and this will be made in two parts. The client, which is a React application, and the serverless functions, which are, again, it is all written in Node, so it's JavaScript, but they will be running in a serverless way by an infrastructure that just makes it possible to write this function, deploy the application, and forget about where they run, in a sense. So you don't have to worry about provisioning the servers to make the functions run. Still, there is still a very clear distinction between what runs on the browser and what runs in a serverless function. But you don't have to provision a server and manually deploy and run this layer of data access. This will be just run in a serverless way on demand anywhere in the world. So this is the general tenet of the Jamstack way of creating web applications. We have whole lectures on the Jamstack, but today we keep it short and go to the point. This is provided by the technology called Netlify. So this slide has a bit more names in it, you see, because the database I've been speaking so far is AstraDB, which is a database in the cloud by DataStax. And in the central block, you see, we are going to run first on Gitpod, which is as if it were your own machine, as if it were your laptop. So Gitpod is where you will be running a development version of this application. But then with the same architectural structure, this will be actually made real and deployed to Netlify, which provides both a CDN to serve the static part to the client browser, the end user's browser, and also provides the infrastructure to run the serverless functions in a separate space. So maybe I jump a bit ahead and tell you one thing. The serverless functions are the only place where the secrets to access the database are given. So, of course, you should never give your database secrets to the client, right? And this is one of the main points to have these serverless functions separate from the client, is to be able to provide secrets to the serverless functions and keeping them out of reach from the end user. Okay, so maybe I've been...
Yeah, one of the things that I was fascinated when I, was basically learning, about, deploying full stack applications is, when I was introduced to Cloud Foundry. So a way to push applications automatically and stand it up. And that's exactly what we're going to do with Netlify. We'll go an extra step.
Yeah.
Because what we're going to do is we're going to clone the code and automatically stand it up from there. I mean, more or less, right? And you'll see all that in action today.
Yeah, and actually the Netlify way of deploying a website, a working application with all its layers is not only very powerful in its structure, but it's also astonishingly fast. I mean, you will see, basically with the click of a button, you will get everything set up and running, more or less. So this is actually like a miracle, even though we are now used to it. Okay, so let's speak a bit of database before moving to the other part of the architectural diagram. Database. Okay, so we need a database to store, in this case, movie data and maybe also movie genre data. This database is going to be Apache Cassandra, almost. So let's first spend a slide on Apache Cassandra. Cassandra is a NoSQL database, which has a few key features. One is it is very good at handling huge amounts of data. It is a distributed database. As you see in the picture, there are a few, these blue circles here are each a machine, whether virtual or a container or an actual server, whatever, they are machines, and they speak to each other in a peer-to-peer way. They share the amount of data you want to host. Well, now you see 7 of them. There can be actually thousands and thousands of them if you need to host much data. Cassandra is a peer-to-peer database, so it has no bottleneck. There is no node that is unreplaceable if it ever goes down, and you will still have your data. Cassandra scales linearly. If you need twice the performance, twice the throughput, you just double the number of nodes and everything will just work, if you have the right data model, of course. It is extremely highly available, exactly because no node is a bottleneck of any kind. It is able to mostly automate operations management, and it is also good at self-heal. And one of the very astonishing parts of Cassandra is its ability to have a single database spread over different geographical places, different continents, even different data centers, which might, by the way, be also in different cloud providers, on-premise, mixed, hybrid, no? On-premise, AWS, Azure, in Asia, America, and Africa, whatever. No problem with that. And then Cassandra is vendor independent. It is an Apache licensed open source software, which provides a huge amount of guarantees for you, never to be locked in. Now, this is Apache Cassandra, and it is, I have to say, already pretty much state-of-the-art piece of software,
and interestingly, you say state-of-the-art, but it's actually what, 13 years old, maybe even more than that. So even before, the cloud was the cloud, Cassandra was Cassandra. So in fact, I have a Cassandra spread across multiple clouds, which is only possible because Cassandra uses a very simple protocol called gossip, and as long as you enable the networking, they're able to talk to each other. So things like what Stefano is talking about, like having your data spread across multiple geographies, it just happens. It's very easy to do that, right? It just happens.
Yeah. Now, don't get us wrong. If we don't spend the whole time speaking just about Cassandra, is because today is about Netflix clone in Netlify. Because there would be a lot of to speak about Cassandra, and actually we are speaking a lot about Cassandra in other workshops, and I will mention a few upcoming workshops. Actually, we have a bootcamp series on NoSQL coming starting next week. So if you're interested in learning more about Cassandra and NoSQL and how to write application in that, you will definitely stay tuned today or join us next week. With that, sadly, I have to move on because I would love to speak about Cassandra at length, but that's how it goes. No, I'm joking. So this was Cassandra, but then DataStax goes, in a sense, a step further, takes Cassandra, the open source, and packages it in a wider ecosystem of data access tools and other very cool technologies, making it into AstraDB. So AstraDB is a managed serverless version of a database built on Apache Cassandra. There are slight differences in how it is embedded, technologically speaking, in the infrastructure, but basically it is Apache Cassandra. It is fully compatible. And besides behaving as the original basic Cassandra, it also offers a lot of different ways to speak to it, as I was mentioning earlier. There is a whole layer of data access APIs, including document, think JSON, think Mongo, including REST API, gRPC, and in particular today, we're going to use the GraphQL API, which is just a different way to access the same data hosted in the same tables in Cassandra. This is all part of a wider ecosystem, including event streaming platforms and ways to communicate with event streaming, but this is not in the scope for today, so I have to move on. Otherwise, we would be short on time by the end, which is also a very cool part. And we definitely want you to get to deploying your application, so I better speed up. Okay, so this is Cassandra, and the first part of today practice, because I remind you, this is a very much a hands-on workshop. You will start doing stuff yourself very soon. The first part is you get your AstraDB instance up and running, and that's, by the way, for free because there are free accounts you can create. You can create an account in the free tier, and that comes with actually a lot of storage and a lot of throughput and monthly free amount of that to use. Actually, it's not a small amount. You can run a production workload with that. So what you start doing, maybe I can, okay, so thank you for having summoned the link to the GitHub repository, because that's where you start. You will see a button, this orange button, create AstraDB, that will lead you to create your free account and your database, which will be then used later in running the application. And I think with that, I can give it back to Rags for the
Perfect.
first part of the practice. Creating
All
the
right.
database and creating the
So
token. Sorry.
let me make sure I don't have the music turned on because it could be a distraction a little bit. Okay, and then moving on to my slides. Okay, where am I? That's not it. All right, let's go with this. This is fine. So usually what I do is I start with GitHub and go to DataStax devs. Okay, but otherwise you can just go straight to the GitHub link that was there. So make sure you click on the workshop GraphQL Netflix. Okay, and this has all the instructions and more that you want. Okay, for the workshop for today. Okay, basically you start at the very beginning, right? You create an AstraDB instance, you create a security token, which is what we're going to do in just a moment. Okay, so like what Stefano said, just click on this orange link, right? You can do it in any number of different ways. Okay, usually what I do is I just open link in new window. Okay, it might be a little bit different depending on what browser you're using, but that's what I prefer. But you can do whatever you want, whatever works for you. Okay, so this will bring you to the Astra console. Okay, and you can put in your name and all that, or you can just use your GitHub account and be ready to go. Okay, so I'm just going to go straight there. Okay, if you, as long as you have a GitHub account, you can use the same account. I'm just using my email, which is just about the same. And like what Stefano was saying, you get $25 per month credit. If you don't use it, it's not going to carry over, but you will get per month. And the nice thing about this is I don't have to put in my credit card, right? So great way to learn. Once you're registered, once you're signed up, just sign in. Okay. I'll remember me and sign in. Okay, and now go back to the instructions, right? I'm going to get rid of this. And I'll go back to the instructions and see what it says. It says create a database name and a key space name. Okay. What is a key space name? Key space is just a logical grouping of your application tables and so on. So it's, or your databases. It's just a container, if you will. Database name again, can be really anything. Your key space name can also be anything, but it's easier if you just go with these names, workshops and Netflix, right? And then you have an option to use any of the clouds because we are cloud agnostic. But pick Google Cloud because that's where you get the free tier, and some of those like AWS and Azure. You will have to unlock it. You will have to request it to be unlocked and so on. The easiest way to do this is, and I'll show you in a moment, is to just go to create a database, right? And specify the name. I think it was workshops, right? And key space name is Netflix. I've already created this. So I'm not going to go ahead and create, but essentially you pick Google Cloud, you pick North America, and you pick Monk's Corner. For me, I have everything available because I sweet talked the operations team to kind of give me everything. But for some of you, this may be in a lock state. So the easiest way is to go Google Cloud, North America, Monk's Corner, and just hit this create database on the right. Okay. So once you hit the create database, you should be able to get the, you should be able to see the database. It'll take a moment, but let's see some thumbs up of when the database is either already created or is in the process of being created. So it may be in a kind of a wait state or a hibernate state or whatever state it is. Just put a thumbs up when you're able to kind of get to this. Again, database name is Workshops and Netflix. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I see some thumbs up. Very good.
Yeah.
So while we wait
go ahead.
maybe a little more, I reiterate, please stick to Google Cloud as the cloud, because that's what the free tier is working on. Stick to GCP and pick regions without the lock icon, which are those available directly.
And for some of you who may have already
account.
created a Workshops database before, all that you need to do is create a key space. So to do that, what you're going to do is you're going to create, click on this dashboard on top, database, DataStax Astra, okay, and then Workshops, right? And then somewhere here you can say add key space. I've created all of that. So no need for me to do any of that. But once you have done all that, let's see what is next, right? So let me go back. Okay, whatever. All right, let me go back to doing the next thing, which is create the security token, right? So basically, this is on the cloud, and we want to allow access in a secure manner, right? To be able to do that in a secure manner, you need to be able to create a security token, which we're going to subsequently use in our CDE, which is the cloud development environment, which is Git part, right? So you will need to be able to create a security token. You can either create it right now, which is probably the easiest way, or you can create it when you are asked for it, okay? It doesn't really matter. I prefer just creating it and putting it, in some place safe. So how do I do this? Using the database administrator role, okay? So create a token for your app, and if you click on this, it'll kind of walk you through how to do this, but I'll walk you through those steps. But keep it handy. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Rags, I want to say one thing before people get too confused. When you are creating your database, while it is being created, which takes maybe 1 or 2 minutes, you will see a token being created for you.
Good question.
But this
good
is
point. Yeah,
just a token for limited operations. So please disregard that token and follow what Rags is doing, because today we need a super powerful token to just open all doors and do all kinds of operations from within the command line to your database. So please don't forget this point. Ignore the auto-generated token for today.
Great point, Stefano. And that's why we kind of do this in tandem, right? Especially everything's straight. Exactly. Yeah. Okay.
It's hard to keep
so how do I create the token? Pretty straightforward, right? If only I can get to where I am. Okay. So basically you click on the organizations, right? And organization settings. Okay, and you can see here token management. And you pick the role, which is database administrator. Okay. And then you say generate token. If you hit generate token, okay, and I'm not going to use this token at all, okay, you can pluck this token. Either you can save it locally, or you can essentially copy and paste it, keep it somewhere handy. But the moment you wander away from this, you're going to lose that token. Okay, so again, what you're going to do, and I'm going to delete all of this because there is a chance that this can be used later. But essentially, what you're going to do is you're going to do token management. You're going to actually, let me walk right from the beginning. You click on that DataStax Astra on top, right? And then on the organization that you're there, click on organization settings. Okay, token management. Okay, and then select the role as database administrator. Okay, and then generate the token. Okay, so they're generating the token, and then make sure you store the token. If you did not, no need to panic, because you can come back and generate another one, and you can delete the old one. Okay, and Anything I missed, Stefano? Or
I think that's all there is to say. Today in particular, well, maybe you should show, you're not showing the token. The token is made by,
yes,
actually, it's composed by 3 different strings. The one we need today
point.
is
Yeah.
the third one that is shown in the UI. The one that starts with AstraCS
Token.
colon
And
and
you
then
can
a lot
and
of
you can see here
symbols.
you can copy it
Okay,
from
that's
here
it.
as well.
Yeah, you
Okay?
see the third one
So that's
there.
an easy way.
Yeah. So once you create a token with the DB administrator role, copy it somewhere, keep it in your notepad, download the CSV, whatever, because it's otherwise you have to go here and generate a new one later. So this will,
Yeah,
we
keep
will
it
need the
handy.
token
Yeah.
very soon. So
With
keep
that,
it ready.
Stefano, I'm tossing it back to you.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. While in the meantime, I see at least a few people just jumped in, Bernardo in particular. And to you, I can say you're still on time, not only to follow everything we do, but also to jump in and do the practice yourself, because now I'm going to speak a bit about GraphQL. And if you really want to do the practice, you can just take time and go to creating your AstraDB and your token, because that's the only
And the
part of the
instructions on
practice we did
GitHub
so far.
are very self-explanatory.
But
Sometimes people like to just
yeah,
follow the instructor and kind of do them later. We like you to follow along, but if you prefer, kind of doing it later, it's fine as well.
yes. And this is something we keep very much in mind when we write the instructions, because we go to the perspective of someone who has not access to the live and just reads the README. So we provide a lot of screenshots. Every instruction is spelled out. So it's really something that you can do on your own later if you prefer. So don't worry. Okay, so let's speak a bit about GraphQL, this very cool and very modern way of querying data APIs. GraphQL. Okay, so this is a refresh from last slide we saw. So we have a database, which is AstraDB. This is based on Cassandra, but regardless of what is based on, today we are going to query it with GraphQL. That's because the whole AstraDB service, which is there for you in the cloud, offers a data API which speaks several languages. Document API, as I was saying, and others. One of them is GraphQL. So your application, which is now still a blank rectangle in the middle of this slide, your application will just need to speak GraphQL to this database. So what is GraphQL? Well, GraphQL is an API, query language, and also server-side runtime specification that is based. So GraphQL is based on a couple of very important principles, which are more or less designed to make it stand apart from the typical REST API paradigm. This is my own way of defining it. So you see in the slide there's a bit of history. GraphQL is just a bit more than 10 years old. It started Facebook. After a few years, it went public, and it started to be picked up by more and more big tech companies because of its undoubted advantages. Most important probably was the GitHub move to switching to GraphQL for some of their services, most of them actually. And today, probably GraphQL is used by maybe 10 to 15% of big web services, as far as I remember. Maybe I'm wrong. This is just off my mind. Okay, so the general philosophy of GraphQL is, let's give the customers or whoever is querying the API, basically, let's give them exactly the data they need without giving them too much, and probably avoiding them, so preventing them from having to do multiple calls for the single piece of information they need. So that's already, if you're familiar with REST, that's already something cool and new, right? Okay, so maybe it's a good time to remind you that we as DataStax developers run a workshop per week. Most of them are more or less revolving around Cassandra, but not necessarily. They revolve around data for sure. And we also have a full workshop about introduction to GraphQL, which is where we expand more on what you are seeing in these few slides. So if you're interested in more about GraphQL, you are definitely invited to look for this workshop. They are recorded on YouTube. And there, by the way, you will also have hands-on practice. And in a sense, this is what you run there is a precursor to today's Netflix clone. So it's more or less building on the same example, just there is a bit more playing with GraphQL, if you want. Okay, so the basic idea of GraphQL is that there is a specific query language that you use to speak to your GraphQL server. And you can see here, you can see it here under the describe your data. So it is a declarative language that requires you to describe the objects you want to get and the particular fields you want to project. So the fact that you can ask for specific fields to be included or not in your return response is part of the basic specification of GraphQL. So it's very different from, you know, when you have REST APIs, usually you can code yourself your own projection options in the request, and then your server will have to run a projection explicitly and get back the data. In this case, projections are part of the specification. Not only that, but of course, you can see here in the middle, you ask for exactly what you need. So you can have filters, or basically that would be a where clause in a query. And the shape of your request, the shape of this query that you're running is exactly the same as the return object you get, which is a JSON still, but it is exactly shaped as your input query is shaped. So it is, there is a layer less of obscurity, if you want. Not only that, but funnily enough, GraphQL servers expose a single endpoint. That's because every query goes to that endpoint, and it is the shape of the query that contains information on what entities I want. And I can also have the server perform joins to relation data with other pieces of data, combine them and give me everything back to me, the caller, as a single object in a single call. So there is a reduction of, you know, overhead bandwidth. There are no, usually there is no need to do multiple calls in a row. Of course, this is moving the N+1 problem over to the server side, but there better optimizations might be in place. So, okay, that was a very brief introduction. There is a whole slide here of pros and cons. We've been touching on some of them. So you declare the shape of the data in the query, and this is exactly what you get back. You can customize the responses. There is a whole different approach to versioning as opposed to REST APIs. So no v1, v2 prefix in your URLs. There's a single endpoint, which is, in a sense, also might be something that gets in the way. I'm not going to touch all these points because I want to rush and have you run stuff. But there are some hard points, but many, many advantages. Think about an environment where you have limited bandwidth. I don't know, mobile applications on the road where good coverage is not guaranteed. Then the advantage of not getting back useless data from your queries and not having to do multiple queries to get a complex relationship written response, these advantages are really a game changer. I think I can stop here because otherwise we would speak about GraphQL a lot, and there is a whole workshop on that. So you will see it in action very soon. Now, there is a bit more to say very quickly about how GraphQL fits in the database, in the data we want to use. So this is going to be a simple application, right? There are a few movie genres, and for each genre, there is a list of movies with a few properties. Duration, a small synopsis of the plot, title, and so on. So the application, this Netflix clone, need two kind of queries. We'll run two queries to GraphQL. One, tell me the movie genres. Actually, it is tell me a page full, a block of the whole list of movie genres. And then for a given single genre, such as action, sci-fi, romance, whatever, tell me, again, a page of movies to show in the client. So these are the two queries that my data model has to sustain. And now I'm not going to spend time on these. We have whole families of courses on that, and you're invited to enter this wonderful field. Data modeling in Cassandra is a whole, I would say, a whole adventure, a whole journey. And it's a very cool technology, how to model your data in Cassandra. But if I have to summarize it into one line, it is you design the table after the query you want to run. Well, this comes from several details and several key points on how Cassandra works. But the main point is that a table is partitioned. So the data of a single table is scattered across your machines in the Cassandra cluster. And that has consequences on what kind of, how you should design your table to be able to run a given query in a fast fashion, in a performant fashion. So, well, enough with the theory. These are the two tables that are going to be featured today. One table is called reference list, and it will have two fields, label and value. More on that later. And the other is called movies by genre, and this is, of course, a list of the features of each movie, such as year, title, duration, and so on. And these will be grouped and characterized by the genre, sci-fi, action, etc. Now, you see here there are some purple and green balloons. Now, not to spend too much time, but the green balloon is very important. It contains only genre. That means that genre is the partition key for this table. That means that every movie of sci-fi is guaranteed to be next to each other in the same physical server. So you can actually you can ask the database to tell me all movies of sci-fi genre, and it will just query a single server. You are guaranteed that a single server will be queried, which makes for a fast query. Okay, so I apologize to the gods of Cassandra for this very, very short explanation of the concepts, but this is, in my opinion, the gist of it. We have to move on. Let me just show you examples of these. So the reference list table, it is designed to contain other kind of information, such as subscription plans for our Netflix or whatever, but in this case, it will just contain genre, and then various genres. So label is always genre, and value is action, anime, and so on. While movies by genre, and as you can see, it has a few important fields, but the important part is that genre, here you see the first column, it contains comedies, and then reality. And these two blocks are guaranteed to be co-located on that particular server for comedies or that other particular server for reality TV, which makes for fast queries. Okay, I think that's
I think again,
the bare
I know
minimum
that,
to go on.
There is a whole
So
lot of courses on just data modeling and all that. But when I'm watching my movies with my wife, one of the things that she always is looking for is, where is this actor or actress who is in this movie acted in some other movie, and you can do all that query with GraphQL very easily and optimize it very well with Cassandra, right? So I think it's a great synergy between GraphQL and Cassandra.
Yeah. Indeed, it's a very good point. Of course, there are indexes and all that to enhance the performance and the capabilities of querying.
Genre, but you can
absolutely
potentially do all that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. There's more to it. Yes. There is absolutely more to it, and you are invited to be as curious as you can. Reach us on Discord. There is a lot to speak. Okay. So so I think this is more or less something we discussed. There is a database layer, which is based on Cassandra and runs, by the way, as a set of Kubernetes pods in various cloud providers. On top of this, there is this multi-language, multi-API data access service, which is called Stargate, and it has document, GraphQL, REST, gRPC, and so on. And on the top level, there are clients who reach the GraphQL server to run queries. So of course, your application, your Netflix clone, will eventually run GraphQL queries toward the Stargate GraphQL endpoint. But before running the application, you will get the chance to play with GraphQL server. Thank you, Rags. To query the GraphQL server and to play with it using something called GraphQL Playground, which is, think a Swagger interface for GraphQL. You will see it in a second. It's very cool. And this is where you will start running your first GraphQL queries. And indeed, we are at the second part of the hands-on. I hope your database is now active and that you have your token, because now you will be creating tables and populating and reading from them in the playground. So just running the queries raw without application yet. Before giving it back to you, Rax, I want to make something clear, because this is something that might be confusing. We speak a lot of GraphQL Playground tabs. So switch to the schema tab, switch to the GraphQL tab. Of course, this is not referring to your browser's tabs, as you see here on the top part of the image. Rather, this is the appearance that your GraphQL Playground will have. And it is, well, Rags will explain more on that. But you see, within the web interface, there are two tabs within the page. You see these two tabs called GraphQL Schema and GraphQL. When we say switch to the tab to run this and that GraphQL query, we mean that one. So it's important not to get fooled and start moving across tabs in your browser tabs. There's something I want to make clear. Maybe that is also that is also appearing later, but I'm not sure. I've been always speaking about GraphQL queries. Now there is a bit of terminology to get right. In GraphQL, queries strictly mean operations that do not change anything on the database and just get me data back. So if I read data, if I want a list of movies, I do a GraphQL query. Johan, the playground will be, Rags will guide you to your playground. I'm just showing a picture now, so don't worry. There are not only queries in GraphQL, because there are also ways to write things, to create a table, to write a movie in the table for movies and stuff like that. So operations that change something in the database are not called queries, they are called mutations, as you see here, by the way. So queries are just reading. Everything that changes the server data is a mutation. Okay, so I think I'm done, Rags. Back to you. And I see people are eager to go to their own playground, so that's time.
Moving on. Again, going back to the same GitHub repo, which has all the instructions. Hopefully all of you were able to create a database and a token. And now we're going to step into the open GraphQL playground. Okay, so make sure you're logged into the Astra account and then click on the workshops database. And, you can see here the instructions are pretty straightforward, right? Even for somebody like me, I should be able to follow this, right? So I'm going to say stay logged in. Okay, so let me see if I can do that without really following the instructions, right? So I go back to my, if you're stuck, always just click on the top left, okay, and you will go to the dashboard, right? Click on workshops, okay, which is what we created, right? And then we hit connect, right? And you can see here there's a GraphQL API, right? So there are a bunch of those, document API, REST API, whatever. But today we're going to focus on the GraphQL API, okay? and it's going to be right there, okay? And you will see somewhere here. Maybe I need to go back to my instructor to see where the playground is, right? Am I missing it? Or all right, again, no big deal. If you don't remember, you hit connect and you hit APIs, and that's the, so let me do that again. Connect APIs, okay, and then GraphQL, right? And where's the playground? Funny. Okay, in the GraphQL playground, okay, so I click on the GraphQL playground, and this is the one that Stefano was talking about. You have the GraphQL schema tab within the GraphQL playground, okay, and then you have the GraphQL tab itself. So it's not part of the browser tab; it's part of the playground tab, if you will, right? It's part of the playground. Okay, so once you have all this, just be sure you have all of this, right? And then you can essentially create a schema. You can populate the data. You can do all of that, and like you would expect, right? I'm creating a table here. His key space name is Netflix, right? Essentially, what is the name? Remember this Stefano was talking about. The label is the partition key, right? And then you have the clustering key, which is basically value, and it's in ascending order. Okay. So let me go back and try to do that, right? So I'm going to go back to my instructions here, right? And I'm going to copy the following mutation, right? So all that you're going to do is you're going to click here. You'll see a copy link there, right? I copy that. Okay, make sure that you have GraphQL schema here. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Okay, and you can just run this query and see what it says. Okay, and you will see here there are a bunch of names in the system key space, right? But what I'm more interested is in creating the tables and so on. Okay. So I start a mutation where I create a table in the key space Netflix, okay, and then I have the partition key as label and I have the clustering key as value, and that's pretty much it, right? Once you have provided the mutation, all that you're going to do is you're going to click on this arrow button, execute the query. You can also do Control Enter. You can only do parts of it by clicking those particular lines. There are a whole bunch of sophisticated things you can do, but I'm going to take the easy approach, right? I'm going to just run this. Okay, and basically you'll get back something like this. Reference list is true, and there is a whole bunch of information about troubleshooting if you want to take a look at that, just in case you run into any of that. But usually what we see as a problem is most entities wouldn't have clicked on the right tab. We kind of keep asking you to switch between GraphQL and GraphQL schema when you can. Okay, so let me take a look at something that I was supposed to, and give me a second here. All right. Okay, so that's good. So I've done that. Now I'm going to go back to the next, right? There is some little bit of troubleshooting here. Again, we created a key space name. We created a table in the Netflix. Why am I black it out here? In the Netflix key space name, right? And then we're going to populate the data. Okay. So when you populate the data, just be careful to change the playground tab to use GraphQL. Because schema is really more about kind of the metadata, and GraphQL is really more about kind of the data itself, right? So that's kind of how you distinguish between the two. So you go to GraphQL, okay, and usually it always points to GraphQL system, okay, which is not going to work. So what you want to do is you want to say Netflix, GraphQL, Netflix, and all of this is mentioned, okay. And I think that should be good. And let's populate this, okay. So basically, make sure instead of system to name the key space as Netflix, right? Because we don't care about putting anything in the system namespace. We want to put it in the Netflix name. So again, We copy the data, okay, and we go in here. We have made sure that it's GraphQL, right? And we're going to paste it here, okay, and run the query again, right? Make sure you have GraphQL enabled because we are inserting data. And you can see here, what are we inserting? We're inserting label genre, which is, just uniform. And then we have action, anime, award winning, and all the different genres that, typically people are interested, right? So, and then it should come back with either a success, which, I see a lot of green, which is kind of cool, right? Basically, it tells me that it created these genres, right? And I'm good to go, okay? And all of these, again, are explained in the, in the instructions. Okay, so you can retrieve the genres. So let me go ahead and retrieve the genres, right? So where do I do this? I have to do it in the GraphQL tab, right? Let me try this. As they say, never try anything that you have not rehearsed before, but I'm gonna live dangerously here. Okay, I can click this and just run this and see what happens. And you can see here I can do either insert genres, or I can get all genres. Okay, so I can do either of the two. So I'm just going to do a get all genres. Okay, and you'll see that the genres that I created are the ones that that are basically coming back. Okay. So I'm not going to go through all of this. You can create a table for movies, create movies table where, again, in the keys place, name of Netflix, movies by genre, and what is the genre, and what is the year, title, synopsis, duration, thumbnail, and so on. And then we're going to insert the movies. So, we have genre sci-fi, title Inception, sci-fi Prometheus, sci-fi Aliens, what synopsis it is, so that you can query on that. But I think one of the things that Stefano was talking about was pagination, right? So with pagination, what you can do is, let's say you have a large amount of data. You don't want to kind of go through that all of them at the same time, but at the same time you want to optimize it for usage, right? So you want to be able to kind of get the first 12 or first 2 or first 5 or whatever as the case may be. But at the same time, I should be ready. It's kind of a similar concept that you use in database, except that, you have a concept of cursor in database. Here you can paginate, so you can go page by page by page. Okay. The only thing is, if you want to retrieve the next page, right, you will see here, I will have to specify the page state. Okay. So your page state here. Okay, so you'll have to specify the page state, and you can try all of this yourself, but I'm gonna see if I can try this. Okay, so I'm gonna retrieve the movies by pagination. Okay, so give me 1 second here, just make sure that I'm on the right. Okay. So hopefully everything is good, because I heard there is some problem with my voice, but making sure that everything is good. So now I'm going to retrieve the movies by pagination. Again, GraphQL Playground, because I'm dealing with data, right? So I'm going to get the movies by, and what I can do is, again, be very bold here. Get query movies by action. Oh, that. Okay, by page, right? Okay, so let's get this and get movie action, right? And you got this movies by genre, and so on and so forth, right? Did I go to the pagination state? Okay, that's just the movie action. So now let's move on to the page. Okay, so this is the first page that I'm going to get. Okay, page size is 2. Okay, just for kicks, I'm going to make it 3, right? And we'll see how it goes. Okay. So I'm going to go to the page 1, right? And get movie action page 1. Okay, and I'm going to get 4 just for kicks. Okay, and I'm going to run this. Get movie action page 1. Okay, and you should be able to see this. you will see here that it's a page state of something like this. Okay, next time what you can do is you can use this page state. I'm gonna put it here. Just make sure that I have it here, and then I'm gonna. Obviously, it's showing me a red arrow there because that's not right? So I'm gonna go and fetch the next page. Okay, and this time I'm gonna get only 2. Okay, and I'm gonna get the query next page. Okay, and this time I'm gonna get only 2, but I need to make sure that I have the right page state, right? So I'm gonna remove this, and I'm gonna copy it here, and we'll see if the next page shows up, right? So it should come, something after this white chamber. So, you saw here, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Which is what we wanted here. We said page 4, page size is 4. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get the next page. And, it started off with selfless, signal, and so on, and we got 2. That makes sense? And if we again use this page state, we can go to the next one and see if it works. Okay, so I'm kind of doing this, beating this to death probably, but hopefully this kind of gives you an idea. I'm using the page state, and now if I hit this query again, right, next page should get me everything after the signal, right, which is the transcendence and Prometheus and so on. Okay. I think is that all I was supposed to do, Stefano, or am I missing something? Did I lose the Skype call in the middle?
I'm here. Hello.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
Rags?
Did I?
Okay, I got back. Great. I have no idea what happened. Hi, everyone. Are we still live?
Yes, we are.
Right?
Yeah. Let me see if I'm
Great.
broadcasting.
So, thank you for rescuing me. I'm going to share my screen as usual.
Interesting.
Yeah, that was unexpected. Oh, I am now in a rectangle in the upper. No, this is just the thumbnail thing. Oh, no problem. So, okay, I have no idea what happened. My laptop just shut down by itself, which increases my trust in Windows even more, but that's life.
Can somebody put in the chat if they were able to see all the GraphQL demo that I did? Just making sure.
I think I've seen in chat people were following, so we should be all good. Maybe not everyone was able to keep pace with you, especially about the last queries, 6 and 7.
Yeah. And I don't expect you to keep. I just kind of walk through that. But again, the idea, the easiest way is to go to this GitHub repo, which has the instructions explicitly. Just keeping one thing in the back of the mind, right? When you're doing anything with the metadata, use GraphQL schema, and when you're doing anything with data, then you want to use GraphQL tab. Okay, and for those of you who probably missed it, just this is the GraphQL schema tab where I create the tables and all that, and there's a GraphQL tab where I create the data itself. Okay, all right. Okay, so back to you, Stefano.
Okay, great. Looks like I was just in time. So apologies, something very much unpredictable and nasty and unexpected occurred to my machine. But thanks to Rags who rescued me, we are back here. Nice to see you. Okay, so you've been using GraphQL in the playground while I was frantically fumbling with my reboot procedures.
And Lena says that she saw the GraphQL, so I think we're good. I follow.
Okay. Yeah, I think so. This is what I could gather. So you've been running queries to, first mutations to create table, then queries, then mutations to put data in your table. Then you tried to read movies, if I am not mistaken. So I was not here, but I remember this is how it goes. Have you been able to test the pagination as well?
Yes, I showed pagination as
Great.
well.
So
Yeah.
that's the most interesting part. Okay, I see there are some errors in the chat. So probably, usually when you see these, Toyzilla, that's because you are in the wrong tab, maybe.
Yeah, most likely.
Either wrong tab or you you didn't create your table yet in the GraphQL
good point.
schema
Yeah,
tab.
yeah,
So
yeah.
mind the odds of. Okay, so yeah, as Alex says, if this is not resolved by the end of the workshop, make sure you reach us on Discord and we can work it out asynchronously. Maybe you can share screenshots and whatnot to help you reach your end final destination of deploying. Speaking of deploying, you've been running GraphQL queries and mutations in the playground, which I hope you agree is a pretty cool toy to experiment and craft your queries. But now, the next logical step is to take your queries and embed them into the application. Remember the Netflix clone we saw, the desired goal, very many slides ago? It's time to get to that.
I mean, just by the title itself, the playground is great for playing around, but for real Netflix clones or for any serious application, you want to basically deploy it in the application, and that's kind of what Stefano is going to be talking in the next, I think we have about 50 minutes to finish this up, right?
Yeah, that should be, we should make it on time and maybe also have time to inspect a bit of the code when it comes to the serverless functions. That's maybe the most interesting part. Okay, so this is, you've seen a picture of what the final application would look like. Now, this is a picture of how the final architecture would look like. So there is AstraDB, and by now, I guess you know more or less how it works. So this blue rectangle contains the database and the GraphQL API, which is part of Stargate. And this is what you were querying already with your playground. Ready, done, ready. Nothing more to do. Well, except maybe loading a bunch more movies, but that's a detail. The center, the rectangle here in the center, the green one, is the whole stuff you're going to deploy in production. And that's made, as we were saying, by two different components. User interface, that is the client proper, and that's going to be basically static code built from the React application, and then it will just be running in your customer's browser. And that's also serverless, by the way, because when it's running in Netlify, that's living in a CDN, easily, quickly available anywhere in the world, and you don't have to worry about this infrastructure because Netlify does that for you. So once this is made into static files that are served to your client browser, this is just ready to be served in the CDN for you. No questions asked. This part, this client proper, speaks to the serverless functions, which are the other half of what you write. And this is still part of the application. It's still handled by Netlify, but it is by no means deployed and distributed to your customers. This is run in Netlify's serverless architecture. Actually, it's servers around the world ready to run your functions, but you don't have to worry about this infrastructure again. So there is a CDN for the static part, the part that is going to your browser, and serverless infrastructure ready to run your functions on demand, which in turn, this function will speak to the GraphQL as if they were the playground. Before getting to this nice result, ta-da! Now, this slide might be intimidating at first. This is just a graphical way to say what's happening. The cool thing is that most of what you see here is just happening on the click of a button. Because you see, we have a repository, and you've been looking at this repository so far. This is the GitHub DataStax devs repository, right? Now, on this repo, there is a button, Deploy to Netlify, which you will be clicking soon with Rugs. Don't do that yet, so you pay full attention to me. This Netlify button will do a lot of things for you. First, you have to authorize through your GitHub account this Netlify to work in your GitHub account, of course. Then it will make a copy of this repo in your GitHub. So you will have your own copy of the repo. That's important for later. It is not a fork. It is just a copy, an independent copy of the same repo content in your personal GitHub. So GitHub, whatever, John, Jack, whatever, slash workshop, GraphQL, etc. And this is important. At some point, you will be required to double check that you are in your own copy of the repo. Then this Netlify button will also go to Netlify on your behalf and create a site. A site is basically a block for a deploy containing both the CDN part and the serverless functions part that I was mentioning earlier. And this is ready to run on a domain, on a public domain, ready for you. It will be basically the deployed application. Indeed, the Netlify button will also trigger a first build and deploy of the contents of this application to that domain. So ready, everything would be ready, except this is not yet running in its full force because the Netlify part, the Netlify actual production deployment has no secrets yet. So it is actually not able to query any database for you. Indeed, you will see it as an empty skeletal application ready to be completed by providing secrets. At that point, you will use Gitpod. I'm not spending words on that. You will just use Gitpod. You will see how. And you will just run the same architecture, let's say the static CDN part and the serverless functions part in a development mode. Again, this is provided by Netlify, and it will just run locally in Gitpod, which is to say it could also run in your own machine. Same thing. We happen to use Gitpod because it is like an IDE in the browser, but that's a detail. The point is that the development mode for Netlify will simulate this situation of CDN plus serverless function just in your machine, in one single machine, let's say. So this is where you will fix the last things and provide secrets. Then the second step will be from that Gitpod, from that IDE, which is just a machine, you will provide secrets, do a last deploy of the code onto the Netlify application. And that will be it, because now the real application running in production on that domain, whatever, Netlify, blah, 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 will be running in its full glory, all the way from the browser of the customer down to the database, containing also the secrets in the way. So that's more or less the story. Well, that's not much to say except showing, not telling. So I hope this is, let's say, has been a very short introduction to how Netlify works. And I hope it will be even clearer now that you do all steps. We have 40 minutes. I think we can do everything very clearly and explain in every step. So please pay attention to Rugs and locate the Netlify button in the repository. And then I think I can switch to your screen, Rugs. I mean, you can switch to your screen.
All right, Stefano. I think that was a great slide. With a lot of information. Might seem intimidating, but like what Stefano said, just take it step at a time, and we should be able to do this.
Yes.
Not a big deal. Really.
So do the practice and remember that you can go and fetch the slides on the repository to look at them later, and maybe it will even click more.
Exactly. Yeah. A lot of times, it takes me like couple of times running through to get the full import of it. I'm fortunate enough that I do these workshops quite often. But if you go through this the second time, a lot of things will, oh shoot, I just kind of walked through that step and now I know what it means really, right? So it kind of crystallizes, and that's why we kind of do this all hands on. Any number of different ways of doing this, but I prefer to deploy to Netlify and just say open link in new window. Okay. Again, just my personal, you can open link in new tab. Maybe I'll try that open. I'll do open link in new window. Okay. So just open the link in new window, and what do you see? It's telling me to connect to GitHub, right? Remember, Stefano talked about we have this DataStax devs repository, GitHub repository, and most of the time most of the other workshops just use that. But here, what we're going to do is we're going to create a fork of it on your own personal account. And that's why it's saying connect to GitHub. Okay, so I'm going to connect to GitHub, right? And it's going to ask me for my username and password. And I sign in. It's giving me an authentication code, right? Because I'm using two-factor authentication. Whatever you're doing, just use that. Let me see if I can get the code for that. Okay. All right. Hopefully that should work. And then of course it's telling me to authorize and all that, which is fine, right? And I'm going to do all that and go with it. Send a push. Okay. And is it just me from Lowell, Massachusetts? Yes, it's me, right? So you're going to get all that, obviously this is authorizing all of this. And once you're authorized, you can save and deploy it. So what is this going to do? It's going to create a fork of the Workshop, GraphQL, Netflix from DataStax devs into your own GitHub repo. And I can show that to you as this is happening. You can see here it's save and deploy, right? So let me go into my GitHub. And okay, you should be able to see this. If I go to repositories, it's updating right now. So what it's doing is, essentially it's going to be populating it with the content, basically forking it, here. Okay. But let's go back to our steps, right? Now that I'm done with this, I'm going to get rid of this, but I'm going to come back to this in a second, okay? Because essentially this showing my site deploys in progress. It is deploying from GitHub. If you click on that, it'll, and it's giving me, I didn't name my team well, but in any case, this is, where the URL of where it's going to be available. And just for kicks, I'm going to run this. Okay, I'm going to open the link in new tab. And you're probably not going to see anything right now because it's still working on it, right? But in a moment, it should be available. It's still going on right now. Okay, so let me go back to the instructions, right? I deployed to Netlify. Okay. I can check the deploy logs and complete the build and all that and get back to your new site. But if you're impatient like I am, I'm just going to go to the Git part right now, right? So note the button works on Chrome and Firefox, right? Unfortunately, it may not work for you, but what you're going to do if it doesn't work is, again, I'm going to open the link in here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open the link in new tab. Okay, I'm going to go to Git part, okay, and I'm going to continue with GitHub. Okay, and it's going to bring up Git part. Okay, it says no referrer found. Why? Because it's actually, what I need to do is I need to put this, which is pound HTTPS, it's going to populate it automatically, github.com. This is the link that, your personal repository, which is Workshop. Let me see if I can remember all this. I'm not. GraphQL, Netflix. Okay.
So, okay, this trick, if the referrer is not working in your browser, is also explained in the repository. So if you are not using Chrome or Firefox, you just have to manually build an URL and go from there, as it's very clearly detailed in the repo. So don't feel lost. We try to cover you in all conceivable browser and situations.
Yeah. So basically, what? Okay, and yes.
Rugs. I think we are back online. Okay. I think we for some time. I think we went offline for. Yeah, I think we are back. We've been offline for maybe 1 minute or so, maybe not even that.
Okay.
Okay. Nice to see you back. We are online. Can you confirm, Lana? Okay, back online. I think Yeah, today is a bit of a funny day,
Yeah, I'm not
right?
sure what's going
First
on.
of the
I
year.
have an excellent. My
No
connection is
idea.
showing excellent.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
should I go through the Git part thing again, or I don't think it hurts, right? Let's do it one more time, okay? So all that you're going to do again is okay. Let's see. This is what I showed before. This is the Netlify app that is deployed, okay, and you can see here that it's deployed, and I'm just going to click on it, okay, and there are again number of different ways of doing this. I'm going to just open the link in new tab, okay, and you should see the skeleton of the application there. Remember one key thing that we forgot here or we haven't done yet is that we haven't connected the data, right? Why can't we connect the data? Because we have not specified the credentials, right? So we shouldn't be able to do that. But let me go back to the instructions and see if I can go back to Gitpod, okay? Again, to go to Gitpod, there is a specific step here, launch Gitpod, okay? And I'm going to, again, open the link in new window. Okay, and if you get this from referrer, no referrer found, basically what you're going to do is you're going to go to gitpod.io and hit a pound, okay, and it's going to populate the HTTPS, okay, and then you say github.com, okay, what's your personal repository, which is ragsns, right, and workshop, GraphQL, Netflix. All of this is outlined in the instructions, okay, and I should have gone with the old workspace. That's fine. I just went with the new workspace. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem.
And it's
So make sure this is done from your personal
correct. Yeah.
repository copy, the one made
And
in
how
the
do you
Netflix
ensure that? Again, if you just type this command get remote -v, it should show you two ragsns, not two DataStax devs. Okay, if you see DataStax devs here, and again, all of this is outlined in the instructions, then it's not going to work for you. Okay, but you have to have this ragsns. Then it's gonna what Netlify is gonna do is he's gonna use that repository and stand up your application. Okay. So all of this is outlined here at some point. Now what we're going to do is we're going to set up the Astra CLI, which is kind of cool, right? All that you're going to do is you're going to do the Astra setup, okay? And I'm going to copy this bulk load command because I think the Astra setup is pretty straightforward. Okay, I do this, and that didn't work. So let me do this. Okay. Astra setup. Okay. So I'm missing the path, I guess, right? Tool is pre-installed, yes. Bash RC. Okay, let's see, Astra. Yeah. Okay. Let me start a new workspace. That might be the easiest way to do this. Let me do this. See if I have other workspaces running, so I'm just going to go back to that and see if that works. Okay, that's not what I'm looking for. You shouldn't have this problem because basically what I did was I cloned the workspace, which is probably not a good idea. All right, let's go to this. Are you guys still able to hear me? Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
All right, let's see if the Astra CLI is available here. Okay, there you go. That's much better. Okay, so I've already set all of this up, I think. Okay, so let me do a AstraDB list. So token has been not set up. So I'm going to set up the Astra. Okay, so all that I need to do is enter the token. I've saved it somewhere, and I have no idea where I saved it. But what I can do is I can create it again. Usually, let's see, I might have something here. Astra token, that's good. And I'm going to go back and populate that. All right. Set up the token. And I should be good to go. AstraDB list. Okay, and I'm good. Okay. So now I'm going to go to the next steps, which is I have way too many of these tabs going. Okay, let me go here. Let me create it again. Okay, and what I've done is I've set up the Astra CLI, right? And then I'm gonna DB load, which is the bulk load of the data, because we have a large movie data set, right? And we're going to bulk load it. And this CSV is already in here, in Gitpod. And I'm going to go there and I'm going to populate that. Okay. So not this. So I'm going to get rid of this. I don't want that. All right. And I will make sure I have that. Okay, so there it is. It shows me all the different workshops. All the different databases. And you can see somewhere here must be the CSV file, and we'll see what that is in a second. So data/movies by by genre.csv. Okay, so this is the the huge file that we're going to load. Okay, so let's run this. So I didn't take a moment to talk about what Gitpod is, but essentially this is the editor window, this is the explorer window, and this is the terminal window where you're going to issue all the commands, right? And what we are doing right now is we have built a secure connection to our database, and what we are doing is we're bulk loading the data to the database. Okay, so all of that is happening through this command, which is AstraDB load into this database called workshops. What is the data that we need to load, and this is the data basically, which has genre, title, thumbnail, year, synopsis, duration, all comma separated, right? And what is the key space, Netflix, and what is the table, which is movies by genre. Okay, so all of this is again explained in the instructions. You can take a look at that. Okay, so we are done with all this. Now what we're going to do is you can look at the serverless function, and we'll take a look at that in a little bit. But I'm going to jump ahead and go to install the Netlify CLI. Okay, so I think I've already installed this, but I'm going to do it again anyway. Doesn't hurt, right? All right, so I'm going to install the CLI. And basically what it's doing is it's doing a node install, and we are installing the Netlify CLI. So this might take a moment. Any npm command takes a little bit anyway. Okay, but that was not too bad. Okay, so it installed the CLI. Okay, and again, what is the next step? We're going to go through the next step, right? Which is provide the DB connect connection parameters. To do this, we created a .nv, and you will see this in just a second as well. So the serverless function part of your app is needed in order to be able to securely speak to your database, right? And that will be done through a .env file. Okay, I've already done this before, but I'll do this again anyway. Okay, so let me create the .env. I didn't even copy paste it. All right, so I'm going to create the .env. All right, and in the keys place workshops, and I create the .env, and you can take a look at the .env, okay, which has all the details that is needed, but I don't need to worry about this because this is automatically created for me anyway, right? So a lot of the steps are automated for me. Now I'm going to run the app in dev mode, okay? So I can do an npm install, okay, and let's go ahead and do this. Any steps I'm missing, Stefana? But yeah,
No, I don't think so.
We'll come back and look at the source code in a second, okay? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just trying to address a few questions in the chat because there apparently Gitpod today is a bit
fussy.
Okay. I have to say there are a few strange things going on in Gitpod for a few folks out there.
Yeah, and we have a lot of moving parts, admittedly, so I wouldn't be surprised if one of them was a little bit finicky today, okay? It's also the new year, probably it's hungover too, just like all of us, right? But all right, Netlify dev, okay, which is the next step. And what we are doing here is we are creating this in dev mode, okay? And it basically is injecting the URLs and all that, okay? It unauthorized. That's not a good thing, right? Oh, did I miss a Netlify login or something? I did not do the Netlify login, right? So I must have missed a step. Let me go back here.
Netlify login.
Okay, so the Netlify dev requires Netlify login. Okay, so maybe so let me do the Netlify login anyway. I need to do this anyway. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to authorize Gitpod to use login, to use Netlify. Or Netlify and get Gitpod as a handshake. So let's see what happens here. Netlify login. Okay, I'm going to open the Gitpod and basically authorize the Netlify application to be able to, or rather authorize Netlify or authorize Gitpod to be able to use Netlify. Okay, did I say that right? Okay, and it should be, access can be revoked at any time, but right now I've granted the authorization. Okay. All right, so let's go back and try the Netlify status now and see if that has improved any. Okay, so that's much better, right? So it basically gives me the information, who is the collaborator, what is the site URL, and so on and so forth. And I'm not going to click on this just yet. Let's go through the other steps. Okay, so let's do the Netlify dev. Okay, which creates the application in dev mode. Okay, and this should do a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, and if you should see this come up in the what is called as the preview window, but if it doesn't, because sometimes it doesn't to me. Okay, so what you can do is you can just click on this plus, which brings up another terminal. Okay, and you can just say GP URL 88.8, and maybe this is also explained. But if you use this URL, you should be able to look at the application. Okay, and there you are, your first Netflix clone. But what's the problem with this? There is a slight problem in the sense that this is only available through Gitpod, right? Gitpod is really more of a dev environment that I can use, to kind of, what we call as the inner loop, right? Just to make some quick changes and check it out and so on. Like for example, here the page size is 2, right? So if I want to go here and correct me where this is going to be, I'm going to go to the source, and I think app.js maybe. I set the page size to 2 because I modified that. but typically it's page size of 5, right? And now what I can do is if I run the Netlify dev again, okay. And the nice thing about the CD is that it auto saves as well. So now I'm going to do Netlify dev. Okay, and I go back again here, and hopefully this should have 5 in this thing, in the page size. Okay, and it's already scrolling because it's going 5 by 5, as you can see here. Now it's 10, and then in a moment it's going to be 15. But essentially all of this is going to be through Gitpod. Okay, all right. So what are the remaining steps, right? We are almost there, so we're going to stop the dev run with Control C. Okay, I don't think we need to do that, but we'll take a look at that. Again, we do a Netlify login, but we have already done that. We do a Netlify link, okay, and then we import the environment and then do a build and then deploy to production and then open the site. And that's pretty much all that we need to do right now, okay? So let's get back to Gitpod, right? But actually, even though we are using Gitpod, we are effectively doing it from Netlify, okay? But essentially what we're doing is authorizing Netlify to use Gitpod, and through Gitpod we are using Netlify, if that makes sense. I don't know if I made that clear. All right, is there anything I need to stop here? Okay, let me stop this. Okay, all right, go back. I already forgot my steps. I need to. Okay, so Netlify login is already done. I do a Netlify link. And feel free to jump in and mention these steps if you want, Stefano.
Sorry, I was very busy
Okay.
with the
Okay,
chat.
no worries.
I was not following.
I'm doing Netlify link.
Tell me again.
I'm doing
Sorry.
Netlify link. No,
Yeah.
I was just saying, feel free to, comment on any of these steps.
Okay. Well, I'm seeing a few folks with some weird thing going on in Gitpod for some reason, but most of them solved their problem so far.
All right.
So
the next part is I'm
go
going to
ahead.
import the env. These are required for the credentials for the production app, right? So we're going to make import the .env and provide it for the production application. Okay, so it did all that. So now it has all the credentials that are required. So now I'm ready to build it, right? So let me build this Netlify build. Okay, and I'm now ready to deploy it, right? So this is a production build. And this is what we're going to deploy into production, right? A lot of steps.
Yeah, so the trick.
And you could automate all of this, right? But we are showing this in in a stepwise fashion so that it kind of builds on top of each other, right? So now we're deploying it to production. So you can see here it's getting the movies, which could kind of give you, and that's the function that we need to. You can see here the get movies, and I'm going to get rid of this because we don't care about the CSV file. Okay, and you can see here I've made a page size of 6. Okay, and uses the page state, remember all this, right? So what I can do is I can just set this page size to, I don't know, I'll try 3, okay? And I'm going to build this again, right? Now I'm going to deploy to, now I think I might need to build it. So let me build it. And I'm going to deploy to production again. Okay, and deploy to production. Okay, and if there is anything else I need to do, I just need to open the site. That's it. Okay, and now what I'll be seeing here is this is not done through Gitpod, but this is done through Netlify. It has a public URL that you can access. It's not Gitpod related, but if I just do a Netlify open site, Okay, it should hopefully open up our cloned application with, what is the page size? Page size of 3. So let's see if it all kind of comes together here. All right. Sure. Open it up. Okay.
Yeah, the open side.
And you'll see here.
Of course, Gitpod is very protective about security. So to be able to open a site, to open a new tab from within Gitpod, you have to go through pop-up blocker, internal dialog in Gitpod and all that. So maybe you're better off by just copying the URL and manually pasting it in a new tab address bar. But that's my personal. So Gitpod is very
good point. Yeah.
Strict.
Yeah. But
even copy pasting might be a pain depending on your OS and browser, but it will eventually work.
Exactly. And you can see here you have the infinite scroll and the page size and all that which we saw a moment ago. And anything else, Stefano, you want to emphasize?
So we've reached the point where the application is running, deployed in production within Netlify. So we reached our goal, basically. May we ask you for a thumbs up if you managed to get to this point yourself?
Yeah, I know it's a lot of steps,
of course,
but again,
a lot of steps, and it's absolutely hard. We know it's hard to just keep following us step by step and getting to the end. Plus, there might be, the occasional Gitpod failure, the wrong token pasted in the wrong place and all that. So it's absolutely to be expected that it's not, so you're not getting to this point at the same time as Rags does, as we do.
But again,
Okay, so any problem might arise. At least someone managed to do it. So for anyone else, we suggest invalid version. I think there's something going on in maybe Gitpod did update their image somehow, which might introduce some version conflict. But I tested the whole thing yesterday night, actually, and it all just worked.
So Miranda has a great comment, and I think we get this quite often, is it really an exercise in cut and paste? I mean, not really. If you take a moment to kind of, follow what exactly it's doing, right? Like, for example, Stefano talked about kind of the architecture of the serverless function, right? And if you follow this along, you will see that first what we're doing is we're building a front end. And then we're injecting the credentials so that the functions can connect to the backend. And again, we tried to explain that, but the easiest way to understand all of this is just walk through the code yourself. And that's the nice part about Gitpod. Yes. We haven't really spent too much time walking through the code, but all of that is available, and you can take I think I talked about kind of the getMovies.js, which essentially queries the movies by genre, gets the values, uses the page state. So you can kind of walk through all of this code yourself. But again, Miranda, your point is taken. If it's too much of a cut and paste, I do get your point. But at the same time, if you take a moment to kind of relate it back to the architecture that Stefano put out in the slides, it'll kind of flow better, if you will.
Yeah, so I think there are two suggestions here, and Rags touched on one of them. And yes, we wanted you to go through the whole thing up to the point where your application is running. And that requires some speed running in some points. Yes. I think you would learn a lot by repeating the steps by yourself, because as Alex said in the chat, in the README, they are well explained, and you will see that they form a bigger picture. And if you keep the architecture sketches found in the slides in your mind or visible, it will all click. I assure you, it will all click. Now, there is also a reason why we focus on let's say, the deploy part, the infrastructure and the architecture part more than the code. And that's because this workshop is based on work by the very famous developer influencer Anya Kubov, who is probably better than we are at explaining front-end stuff. And you see in our repository, you will see by the end a link to the video tutorial by Anya, which is here. You can see it just a snapshot here. And there she will explain how the whole application is written from scratch. So she will explain the code of the client and the relation between the serverless function, the React components. Right, so I'm not showing my screen, but I forgot. Rags, can you quickly jump to my screen just to... Sorry, I was not even mentioning that. So if you're more interested in, let's say, the coding part, then I don't think we could do a better job than Anya herself in explaining how the whole thing is born. And this is where you can really see the whole application being constructed line by line. And you find the link to this video tutorial here in our repository. As for the deployment part, again, I can't stress enough that repeating it yourself, looking at the architecture sketch and maybe that infamous slide with a lot of arrows, that will suddenly make a lot of sense. I swear, I assure you. Yeah, then of course, after playing a bit with Gitpod and Netlify, you will start getting familiar with that. So you will start maybe inventing your own way of working, because you're not. It's not compulsory to use Gitpod if you just want to get to Netlify. You might, and you could try developing on your local machine, so no Gitpod involved at all, and just sending your build application to Netlify. Or conversely, you can just skip Netlify and just work from our own repository, cloning it on Gitpod and running there in dev mode, just because that's what you want to do. So by doing these experiments, you will really get to the point where you disentangle how the various pieces work together, because this is the final thing, and it's admittedly a lot of moving parts. And I agree that it might look intimidating and a lot of parts connected together, and because it is. It's complicated.
Think about what we did in this session, right? We started with scratch, created a database, loaded the data, created a function, did all the development in Gitpod, and then moved the whole thing to Netlify, and that's the production. So a whole lot of things that you did. So again, if you didn't get through all of that, that's fine. You can kind of do it yourself with the self-explanatory instructions. And do you want to go into presentation mode, Stefano, and then try to?
Yes. Of course, and I have to find my way again, because there we are here. Okay, so, but thank you for this question, because this is all valuable feedback, and we try to incorporate as much feedback as possible. For example, I just took a note of making an explicit mention of this connect to local VS Code dialog, which pops up in Gitpod. I mindlessly always dismiss that, but we should make it clear in the README to just skip that. Thank you. Don't remember who was saying that. Someone mentioned that a few times. Toyzilla. Thank you, Toyzilla. Okay. So, yeah, I think we got to the end of it. Again, if you didn't manage to get to production, please go to the repo and complete the exercise. And I think that's the best way to learn. But now, time to wrap up. It's
quiz time.
So we can have a bit of interactive quiz to check if you learned something and if you are fast in answering. So maybe, Rags, it might get back to you for the quiz. I will summon again the connection secrets to get to Menti for the quiz. But if you kept your tab open or your phone open connected to Menti, you should good to go already.
Make sure.
And if you click there, you will be able to answer a few questions. And if you are faster than the other, you will win. Okay, that's really for you to consolidate what you've learned. So
let me turn on the music too, so, all right.
great.
Start with the questions. We have a few people still, not joined yet. So give it 2 more minutes, maybe 1 more minute. Maybe, okay. The rate of joining is pretty low right now. So I think we should, maybe I'll put the code again, 89 18 67 5. All right. Moving on. Question 1 of 6. Are you guys ready? Okay. Answer fast, but most importantly, answer correctly. What the heck is AstraDB? Is it a local in-memory database? Is it a gateway to the stars? Is it a persistence framework for whatever that is, Haskell, which is a language? And
pretty funny language at that.
A database. Oh, wow. We did a good job here, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Okay, that was an easy one, right? So now, let's move on to the next one. But in the meantime, let's check the leaderboard. Well, we are 2 fastest. I don't think I've seen a tie before, or maybe I've seen it once. Kitten and Harsh are both on a dead tie, and they're on top. Yeah.
Wow.
That is
nice.
Really cool, isn't it? Yeah. But it could be anybody's, right? Tweeto, Nakshatra, Navina, Jai, Lana, Nemo, Karibab, Biro, any of you, right? We have, 5 more questions maybe, right?
Yeah.
All right, again, same drill, answer fast, but most importantly, answer correct. In GraphQL, you write data to a DB with a query.
Remember, write data.
Yeah.
We stress that.
You can edit. Is it a mutation or is it with a write? Oh, in GraphQL, you can only read, no write. Is that correct? All right. We managed to fool a few people,
great.
but maybe we didn't do a good job explaining. But in any case, I think it's pretty good.
We will stress it even more.
Let's look at the leaderboard.
Yeah.
Harsha Kitten. Oh, looks like. Yeah, it's close.
They're close to each other.
But Jay was the fastest. Okay, anybody's game.
Hero jumps.
Krishna Chaitanya Guteti, who just got on the board, still could make it, right? So, we'll see. Question 3. Get ready. Sharpen your pencils. All right. What can't you do with GraphQL? I hate negative questions, but that's the way it is, right? You cannot do auto discoverability. You cannot do schemaless. You cannot do federation. You cannot do responsive customization. Whatever that.
I'm afraid we didn't touch all of these points.
Okay. I blame it on you, Stefano. No, I blame it on myself.
You will have to do a bit of guesswork.
Only 2 people got it right. Schemaless. Okay.
Yeah, that was not explicitly mentioned. So response customization and discoverability we sort of touched, but the other we didn't. Yeah. So schemaless, that's because GraphQL starts with a schema, a precise schema of all data types and all fields in every type you can query, and they are So GraphQL server starts by defining a schema for your data. So anything schemaless is absolutely verboten. There's a question, what's federation? Well, basically it's the ability for GraphQL servers to join data from different data sources, in particular to join data from different GraphQL servers in turn. So to make them look like a single coherent source of data to the outside, even though they are actually stitching together from different sources. That's a bit out of scope for today, but thank you for the question.
And did you already talk about response customization as well, if you want to?
Well, the fact that you can do basically projection, the fact that projections are embedded in the main language specification. So you specify exactly which fields you want to get back.
So Gary Webb had done the homework, I guess, was the fastest. But Hirsch is still on lead.
And now everyone is on the same on the same ballpark.
Exactly. Yeah, pretty much. Everybody is 18, 17. Yeah, it could. We still have like what, 2 more questions? 3 more questions. So I think,
Maybe 3.
So it's still anybody's game. All right, next one. Moving on. Yeah. What are the terms used for paging? We definitely talked about this for sure, right? Maybe not, in too much detail, but we definitely did cover it, right? Is it paging size and cursor? Is it page size and page state? Or is it page number? Or is it book title and bookmark? Curious why book title and bookmark are there, but all right, we did a better job with this, right? And that's good. Page size and page state is correct, because remember, again, you can set the page size, and then for the page state, you've got to basically tell where you are, in the grand scheme of things, and then you can go to the next page, and so on.
Yeah. Until you get back a null, which means end of results.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see if the leaderboard has shaken up a little bit. Maybe not. I think Hirsch is still keeping pace.
A bit.
Hirsch is the fastest. Lena is close. Jay, Navina.
No big changes.
No big changes. But it could be James Wong, Nemo, anybody. 2 more questions. Answer fast, but most importantly, answer correctly. Netlify is what? ... He's a Java application server, platform to build and deploy web apps. Is it a code review tool? Or is it a software to calculate your tax bill? Very appropriate for the new year, especially in this part of the country. This part of the world. Wow!
That's great.
Everybody got it.
So I think the main message of today, alongside GraphQL itself, went really well.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. I would have been disappointed if it was anything else. Right? All right. Maybe Hirsch is still holding on to the lead. Hirsch is the fastest. Yeah, and still anybody's game. The last 2 are a little bit more difficult, right? All right, let's see. Moving on. Oh, this is the last one. Okay. For all the marbles. Ready? All right, I'm going to start the countdown. I don't know if we talked about this. Yes, we did. Right? What is the main benefit?
Yes. Yeah. We've been speaking a bit about where the serverless function comes in.
There is no benefit to serverless functions, only for local deployment. I only need one function to retrieve my data. I don't understand that either, but who knows? That's correct. All right.
Yeah. And, great. Nice to see this is more or less went through. So yes, serverless functions still have to run on some server, but this actually means you don't have to care about where, because in this case, that's what Netlify does for you. It just handles execution of these functions wherever it is needed and whenever it is needed, handling all the complications itself, which is not bad.
Exactly. Okay. Let's see the final leaderboard.
Some changes.
Hirsch the winner.
Ahead. Yeah.
Oh, so Hirsch, you got bragging rights.
Jay.
Feel free to take a screenshot.
Great, well done.
Or whatever you want to brag, put it on LinkedIn, whatever you want to do. All right.
Yeah.
And we'll tell you what you can do with it in a second. And Stefano, I'm going to throw it back to you. Is that good?
Okay, great. Thank you.
Oh,
guys.
sorry. Yeah. Just give me 1 second. I know we asked for open feedback as well, right?
Yes.
So I kind of missed that.
Yes. Advance to the feedback slide. So if you, we've already got a lot of valuable feedback in the chat. So thank you. But if you feel like letting us know anything more, what we can improve, where we can work on this workshop for next time, then you're welcome to tell us. And we thank you.
So give it like 50.
We can just leave this running for a little while.
You can do it in the
we-
meantime, and
yeah.
we will move on to the presentation.
Great, thank you. Okay, so congratulations everyone for the quiz and for being with us so far. Just a couple of slides to wrap up. Suggestions on what to do next. So you can go and watch the video by Anya to learn more about the code. You can, and you are invited to repeat the deploy phase following the README, and it will click more and more. And maybe you will find out your next most loved tool for web applications, who knows? You can also go and do the homework, because at the end of the README, you will see instructions on a little exercise, which amounts to add a new movie or a new genre to the database and making it visible in the application. Take a screenshot and let us know. And we will give you your very hard-earned badge for bragging on socials. Yeah, so for anything else, we would love to connect on Discord to discuss and to maybe, who knows, develop more applications, more cool stuff. So please go to the README on GitHub, and you will find the homework instructions. In particular, something that there was no time to check in much detail, but all the trick with how the serverless functions issue GraphQL queries and how the client speaks to the serverless functions is all in the code, of course, but there are detailed explanations in the README, because that's probably the most novel part. If you are used to React, that's where the Netlify part kicks in, and this is where we spend time explaining everything to you. And of course, you are invited to reach us on Discord to discuss more. Now, this is our Discord server. Maybe we can have bot give you the link in the chat. And with that, we're almost done. Now, there's an important 3 weeks bootcamp starting next week, which is here, and it will take you by hand and bring you from possibly no knowledge over to being able to write a NoSQL-based full stack, well, a NoSQL database-backed backend. So you will learn about NoSQL, you will learn about Cassandra, you will learn about data modeling in an efficient way, and finally writing an API or an application using this database as its data storage. That's a pretty cool skill, and I really strongly recommend you to enroll in that. It will be fun.
And if you cannot attend, all the three, we still do what we call kind of a review of the previous ones. So if you cannot attend,
yes, they are standalone to some extent. Yes.
So don't if you forgot to attend the first one, or you cannot, just feel free to attend as soon as you can.
Yes. The last thing is, if you're interested in Cassandra, of course, there will be much more about Cassandra than we saw today. And in the next week's bootcamp, there will be more about Cassandra, a lot more. So if you're interested in Cassandra, consider attending either in person or virtually. Consider attending the Cassandra Summit. It's going to be a big celebration of the power of Cassandra with a lot of cool stuff. And I think with that, we can say goodbye and thank you for staying with us so far. I hope you've been learning a lot. And if you want to go back to the repo and do the practice, and if you ever get stuck, please do reach us. We would love to help you along the way. So I think that's it.
Thank you and ciao.
Thank you. See you next time.
And as always, don't forget to click that subscribe button and ring that bell to get notifications for all of our future upcoming workshops.
Imagine a being gifted with powers from the goddess of Cassandra, who grew those powers until she could multiply at will, move with limitless speed, and unmask hidden knowledge. With those powers, she was able to fully understand the connectedness of the world. What she saw was a world in need of understanding. From that day forward, she sought to bestow her powers on all who came into contact with her.